Dad's Playground. Hooray!
Hey, it's Jeff Zito with another episode of Celebrity Jobber. Please subscribe, rate, and review. You know, I was reading some really nice reviews the other day, but I wanted to get to one review that I got. Not a very good rating of 1 star, and the subject, this guy, with a bunch of periods afterwards. A rather annoying interviewer who keeps interrupting the guests. Nothing new here. I was a little bummed out about that one because I was getting some really, really nice reviews. And then a buddy of mine reminded me, he goes, hey, man, you know you're doing something right, though, when the people that don't like you happen to listen and give you a bad review because, you know, you could just set up a bunch of nice reviews from all your pals, but once you start getting the bad ones in there, well, I guess you know people are listening. So, Anna Hart, 69, thanks for listening. I'll try not to interrupt, and I accept your constructive criticism. But anyway, if you want to leave a nice review, I would appreciate you doing that as well. So one of the founding members of the band Kansas, legendary rock band, by the way, celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. Can you believe it? You know how difficult it must be to be in a band for 50 years? You know, touring the world together, traveling in close quarters, whether it's on a tour bus, airplane. I mean, you are living with these people more so than your family for months and months and months out of the year. And it's got to be pretty tough to keep that kind of dynamic together. And then to be successful on top of that all, probably why a lot of these bands that are celebrating 50 years or some monumental milestone are still together because they get along. I'd have to imagine that is a pretty important part of it. But if it wasn't for 50 years with the band Kansas, what would founding member Rich Williams be doing? What do you think his big break was? What really put Kansas on the map? What was Rich's first job? And what might he be doing today, if not for Kansas? And if you know anything about the band, Rich is the guy who wears the eye patch. So what's up with that? We're about to find out. Founding member of the legendary rock band Kansas, guitarist Rich Williams, my guest this week on Celebrity Jobber.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I got a funny story for you that, I've been in the radio biz for quite some time now, and I worked at a small station way back when, and it was in Sarasota, Florida. And I remember that this one woman that I worked with, her name was Kathy Greer, who's the wife of the lead singer in your band, Billy Greer. And I remember that she sat in the back of the building, so we used to call her Kathy Greer in the rear.
I'll remind her of that.
But this was a small station that we worked at back in Sarasota many, many years ago. She'll probably have a faint memory of me, but that was my story with Kathy and Billy. So how are you, man?
I'm great. You know, that's funny. That sounds like a porno movie, actually. I'm doing great. Speaking of Billy, today's Billy Greer's birthday.
Wow, you got to be kidding me. Well, that's crazy.
No, yeah, it sure is. This is what we call the holy days. It's Billy's birthday, then my birthday's on the 1st, Phil's on the 3rd, and then Ronnie's is right after that. So they're all 4 of us in the band have birthdays, within about a week of each other.
You know, that's like one of those times of the year where it's like everybody's birthday comes right around, and it's after Christmas, so you got to tuck a couple extra bucks away because, even though Christmas is over, you've got this streak of people that you're going to have to buy birthday gifts for.
Yeah. I don't know what happened 9 months before this time, but people were getting busy. I know that. Yeah,
you've got to do some math here and figure out what the actual occasion was 9 months ago. Somebody must have had something in common. So, look, man, you're one of the original members of the band Kansas, and it's got to be tough, when you talk about, you talk to bands over the years, staying together, being on the road, you're in close quarters, you've got to write songs together. I mean, how do you stay together after all these years? You mean, you must be just best friends, but there's got to be some kind of bumps in the road.
Well, there's been those that had enough and they left because people have retired. And so, for me personally, there's nothing else I wanted to do. And somehow I came along with an understanding that there's going to be good times, there's going to be bad times. And there's going to be boring times. There's going to be just a bit of it all. There's going to be times that are really going to test you. They're going to test your devotion. It's going to test your endurance. From the get-go, I just kind of naturally accepted all of that as what this job was, the entire lifestyle and all that comes with it. And I embraced it all. And so for me personally, it's just like whatever happens today, it's just another day in the life of being in a band. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it really can stink. And most of it is like travel related or you can't make it to a show. And Phil and I have done this for so long now that we don't panic in any way. Usually we're just like, oh, we're screwed. What are we going to do now? And you just laugh it off. It's not the end of the world. And even in accepting change is probably the hardest thing for a human being to deal with. We fight change always, but it's probably the most natural thing that happens. I mean, we are all changing every second. And so we learn to accept that. And so instead of worrying about change, it's like always, okay, what's next? What's the next plan? What's plan B? Where do we go from here? And so in maturing in a way to be able to deal with those kind of things has made life a lot easier. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out and we'll move forward.
So you're one of those guys that just says, you're along for the ride. Let's just figure it out day by day. Let's not think about too much stuff, because when you look at the whole thing, I mean, Kansas, you guys have, legendary band, been together for a long time. Tell me about the beginnings of the band. Did you always know that you wanted to be a musician way back when you first started Kansas? What did you think you were going to be?
Well, before Kansas, I heard the calling. I remember I was laying in my bed one summer night, and the window was open, and there was a block party that was going on in the next block over, and there was a band playing out on the patio. And I can remember the song Land of a Thousand Dances was drifting through the window and laying in the dark, and I just was imagining what that must be like to be playing, to be in a band, and to be traveling with these guys and going around, not just within the city, but going to different states and things. And all of that was very intriguing to me. It was like a little boy going to the circus and never went home. Then the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, and that lit the fuse on that every young male in my age group, everybody wanted to be in a band. And so I kicked and screamed till my dad rented me a guitar and amp, and I took a few lessons. And that's ever since then, that's what I've done. But it came with an acceptance of what it was going to be like, because it wasn't just playing guitar; it was being a part of something bigger than me, having your friends to make music with and to travel, see the world. I had some weird understanding of what I was getting into at a very early age.
So did you go to college, Rich? Were you planning on doing something different?
I tried college. In 1969, late 69, early 70, Phil and I, my partner, Phil Ehart, we've been playing since 67. In 69, we went to New Orleans. We were in a band living in the French Quarter. And I had got a little disgruntled with that. It was tough. So I came home and I went back to college for a semester, and then the next semester I got in a band and didn't go to school, flunked out, and then that didn't work out, and I went back to school, and then, quit. And so I was I hated school. I didn't want to do that. I was just avoiding life. And then Phil had gone to England because he was trying to get something going. That wasn't working out. He called me from England and said, let's get the band back together. And I was hating college. I said, sure, who are we going to have? And he had met Steve Walsh and played in the band with him previously. Dave Hope and I and Phil had played together quite a bit. And so we kind of had the nucleus, and there was this violin player from Lawrence that was out of work. And we had the nucleus of a band that was called White Clover. We made a demo tape, got to Kirshner, and he loved it. And meanwhile, Kerry Livgren was also from Topeka. He was a great songwriter, and he wasn't doing anything. So we said, we got a record deal, and he joined the band, and off we went.
Wow. So was there ever a backup plan, Rich? I mean, music, obviously, that's the dream. Everybody wants to make it, and you guys got together and you had this common goal. But, I mean, did you ever think about if music wasn't going to be what you did for the rest of your life?
Fortunately, I was young and dumb.
Right.
And, I didn't care. I wasn't concerned with that. Of course, my parents were. My dad was a manager of Ryder Truck Rental, and he wanted me to follow in his footsteps, which, my God, that's the last thing in the world I wanted to do.
What was your father? What did he do?
He was a manager of Ryder Truck Rental.
Oh, okay.
And so I was never going to do that. Clearly, college I wasn't cut out for. I was going to just play in bar bands. If this didn't work out, I'd just continue playing. But, to make a living, I probably would have been a bartender, and I would have maybe bought a bar. And I'd be right now I'd be an alcoholic drunk very disgruntled about my lot in life. That was my turf. Fortunately, I completely quit drinking 13, 14 years ago, and lived it to tell the tale.
Right. Is that tough, being on the road, doing what you do? Is it tough to, because drinking and being on the road, it just kind of goes hand in hand. Is it tough being out on the road while you've quit drinking?
No, it's a lot easier.
It is.
You talk about tough being on the road is doing it and drinking. I mean, there's times where I'll get to bed at 3:00 and I have to get up at 5. And dragging your suitcase down the hallway of a hotel with a hangover is one of the most miserable things I've ever done. And so now when I have to do that, I'm so grateful that I don't have a hangover. And to be honest, what the things you did in your 20s, your 30s, even your 40s, the people that continue that in their 50s, 60s, etc., they're all dead.
Right.
It's not a lifestyle that you can keep up and survive. The best thing I ever did was meet my wife today, and she wasn't going to put up with it. It's like she gave me the greatest line. She said, "I can't tell you what you're going to do, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do."
Right.
If you don't stop drinking, I'm gone. And she was a lot more important to me than anything, and it made it pretty easy. And for any older gentleman, I would definitely suggest putting up the bottle and just having the memories.
Right. Tell me about your big break, Rich. When do you remember when it was, and basically what led Kansas to become one of the biggest rock bands in history? I'm sure there were quite a few things that happened along the way that got you guys to where you are today. But what do you consider your big break to be?
Well, there would be two. The first break would be we did a demo tape, and the song "Can I Tell You" was on it. And that wound up on Don Kirshner's desk, and eventually he heard it, and he liked it. And through that, we got a record deal. And so that was our biggest dream ever, was to actually get to record anything beyond that, and to maybe break out of just the Midwestern bar circuit. So we got to do that. We got to record an album, and also we're on the road opening for other acts. The big break was, when we got to the fourth album, Left Overture, and Wayward Son exploded. And that kicked the door down for the rest that followed. And because of that song, if that song had not been written, we were 4 albums deep with Don Kirshner, and he was our benefactor. But he'd been pouring a lot of money into us, waiting for something to happen. And without that hit, we might have lost our deal with the label, and I'd be that bartender.
Right. Did you notice after you wrote the song, Carry On Wayward Son, how your life changed? Did you notice playing in front of bigger audiences, being, booked in bigger venues? Did you notice an immediate change right after that song became a big hit for you guys?
Well, the biggest change was we went from being an opening act to a headlining act.
Right.
And so, it was instant change, but we're pretty young, and we're climbing up the mountain. And so it just seemed like the next logical step. The first album did okay. Second album was better. Third album still a little bit better. And we were constantly working and putting out an album every year. So it was a constant journey that we kind of had our nose to the grindstone and weren't paying a lot of attention to weren't all that aware of the trajectory. And so it just seemed like the next logical step. And I can appreciate that moment so much more now.
Yeah.
Just like being on the road today, I can appreciate every day rather than in reflection. Back then, we were just inexperienced, and so it was hard to compare those moments to anything. So it's kind of another day of wonder. Now it's a different appreciation for it.
Sure. You remember your first job, Rich? Was it outside of music? Do you remember what your very first paying job was?
Well, that's easy because I only had 2.
Really?
The first job was, I was probably about 14, and a bowling alley had been built a few years before in a local shopping center, and I took up bowling. And it was in the junior league and all that, and that was, at that time, that was my passion. I wanted to be a professional bowler. Well, the bowling alley closed for the part of the summer to refinish the lanes, etc. What am I going to do? So I went down there and applied for a job, and I worked that summer for 25 cents an hour. I spent all day restaining bowling shoes and spraying disinfectant in them and taking sandpaper to the soles.
Right.
I did that for a summer. And then in one of my brief stints in college, I worked in a liquor store, which was probably, in hindsight, not a good idea.
Those 2 jobs.
That's the only two jobs I had, other than being in the band.
It's funny, though, because, a lot of guys I talk to, there's some people out there that never had any job. It was like, I think it was John Oates from Hall & Oates said, other than, being a musician and giving guitar lessons, I never had any other job in this world than music. And I thought that'd be incredible.
Earlier than I did, yeah.
That is absolutely incredible.
I was 17, so he must have had an earlier start.
Wow. Do you find it tough being out on the road these days? I mean, you said you got time to reflect now and it's different. You're not drinking. But, being on the road is tough for any band at any age. Do you find it now, some of you guys, you're in your 70s, the touring schedule kind of grueling, you're putting out new music, you're still touring. Is it difficult? How do you do it?
Well, 20 years ago or more, Phil and I made a decision that this has to be fun. And there's nothing about grueling that's fun. And so what we've done is what we call the Kansas mode, where what we aim to do, and you can't always do it this way, but most of the time we do, is I will leave on a Thursday afternoon to the city we're playing on Friday. I'll fly there. So I wake up, let's say in Kansas City. We play the show. the next day, the next show is St. Louis, which is an easy drive. Play Friday Kansas City, Saturday St. Louis, Sunday morning I fly home, and we do that all year. And so we get to have a home life. It's not enough time to get worn out. It's a fun, easy pace. There's always a weekend to look forward to, compared to riding around a bus where you're playing 4 or 5 nights a week. A show Tuesday in Thermopolis, Wyoming, you're probably playing for the opening of the new bowling alley, and you don't get to go home. But maybe for a week every 2 months. That is torture.
Right.
And so we figured that part of it out a long time ago. And so doing it that way, but travel hasn't changed much since in the last 50 years. You get in a rental car, you get on a plane, you go to a hotel, you go to the venue. That's kind of the same. The tedium of that you have to make peace with. I figured out quite a while ago that there's 24 hours in a day. I've got to spend them somewhere. So just to enjoy the moment wherever you are. There are thousands of guitar players a whole lot better than me that would do anything to switch places with me.
I bet.
At home looking out the window. And I'm very aware of that. I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I've been given to do this. I don't take it for granted. And so in doing that, you've got to find a way, just like there are certain songs you get tired of playing. So I've got to make peace with that. I've got to figure out a way to play them better, to get a better guitar tone, play it on a different guitar, just do something to where I can enjoy the moment. And that works for me.
And, Richard, of course, being, a member of a legendary band like Kansas, you are also known as being the guy in the band that wears an eye patch. Is there a story behind it?
Well, what it is, there's no eyeball behind it.
Okay. So that's it's definitely not, it's not your personal style. There's an actual reason behind the eye patch.
The summer, 4th of July, between 7th and 8th grade, being a stupid kid, I made a bomb, and it went off prematurely, and it blew a hole through one hand and burnt the other hand black, blew most of the clothes off my body, and blew my eyeball out onto my chin.
Oh, my God.
It was quite an ordeal. And I wore a glass eye for quite a while, but it was never comfortable. And especially, being at whatever level, being a public figure, the glass eye doesn't follow your other eye that well.
Right.
So, and looking at pictures, I was cockeyed 3/4 of the time. And I just didn't want to do that. And I needed to get a new one because they kind of wear down in time. I just thought, screw this. I'm going to get an eye patch. And never look back.
Well, Rich,
it became my thing.
It's your thing. I mean, it worked out. I mean, you're that guy. But I never knew the story behind it. Such an iconic band, such a unbelievable story. Rich Williams is our guest here on Celebrity Jobber from the band Kansas. Great to talk to you. Great story. And don't forget to tell Kathy Greer that Jeff Zito from WYNF says hello.
I will.
Man, I had no idea about that eye patch. I thought it was just a cool look. Wow, his father was a manager at Ryder Truck Rental. Didn't want to follow in the old man's footsteps, that's for sure. Had dreams of becoming a professional bowler and worked at a bowling alley, spraying shoes with that disinfectant spray. One of his first jobs. And was also a bartender. As he said, he had to quit drinking about 13 years ago. I'm kind of glad that wasn't his path. It might not have worked out as well as it has for Rich. The big break, obviously getting a record deal and writing one of the most iconic songs in rock history, Carry On Wayward Son. It's where it all changed. Cool story. And you know what? Everybody has one. These famous guys could have been just a regular average Joe. And if not for the big break, might have been just an ordinary 9-to-5er like you and I. Hey, who knows? Maybe somebody out there listening right now, your big break is coming up pretty soon. And maybe you'll call me and say, hey, I want to be on that podcast. I used to listen to it, and now I got my big break, and I want to tell you all about it. Thanks for listening. Again, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you pod. We'll see you next week with another episode of Celebrity Jobber. I'm Jeff Zito.